Hi everybody, and welcome to this tutorial where I want to draw this amazingly lovely puppy. And the puppy has fallen asleep upon the piano. I did a pre-study first on the very cheap Ami newsprint paper using a charcoal pencil. This is the paper. It's Ami Skizzenblock newspaper. It's well, very cheap and very good for doing pre-sketches. I've drawn this one-on-one, but the actual drawing that I'm going to do with you will be drawn a little bit bigger, 16 by 24 centimeters. And I will be drawing on this Strathmore Grey Scale paper. It's a heavy weight textured surface, as you can see here, so a lot of grain in this paper. I bought it new, so I'm very curious about this paper. And what I'm also going to use are the pastel pencils by Stabilo Carbotello. I'm going to use well, just a few out of this box of 60 chalk pastel coloring pencils, as you can see here, because I'm using the gray tone for this. Well, it's just a lovely drawing. I really wanted to share this with you. And here I've started. I've taken the well, a bit of a mid-gray pastel pencil for the first setup lines. And what you can see here is that there is an awful lot of perspective going on here. So this puppy is sleeping on the piano, and his nose is pointed towards us. So what you want to do first is to check out all those all those perspective lines, and you can see the ebony and the ivory keys of this piano. They are stretching out towards the puppy, and in front the keys are bigger and they appear smaller as they move towards the puppy. So this is a lot of perspective, but we really need to get those lines in, and in that way we are also creating a surface to place the puppy upon. So if you wanted to draw along, then make sure to first start with the part of the piano and the piano keys, the ebony and the ivories, so that you have that a special well, it's kind of a 3D effect that you want to create here. And this is the front part of the piano, and then I'm simply eyeballing out the lines for all the keys here, just trying to move in the direction as they are in the reference picture. And once I have those keys standing there, then I can easily see where the nose of the puppy will be. I've also placed 2 lines through the reference picture, exactly through the midst, and in that way I can also see where the tip of the nose here is going to be. So those 2 little helper lines are also very nice to put in your sketch, your first sketch. And here you can see where those little hairs go, the whiskers. And I've got the nose now on the correct place. I've also placed in that dangling little paw that is going over the keys of the piano. And this doggy is really fast asleep. And well, his eyes are both closed, of course, so we cannot see the eye, but you can see exactly where the eyes are. And you can just see the left eye, and the right eye is well, in plain sight. Then here will be the top of the head and the ear. And this drawing took me 2 hours and 20 minutes to make, and it is in real time to be found on my Patreon page, should you be interested in viewing the whole session of this progress. So I have the ear here, and this is the side of the cheek. Then the nose is dipping over here, and there's some loose skin there, and I'm simply checking out where the dark parts are, the middle shadows, if you like. And I'm using the pastel pencil 726 for this, and that's a mid gray, so that's a great starter for your first setup lines. And those setup lines, I just take my time with them to place everything in the right spots, so that it will be easy for me to continue the rest when I start drawing with the colored pencils and the whites. But first thing you want to do is to put in those mid tones, and you can see it here. I'm using my pencil very, very flat, and what also shows is that you can see the grain of the paper. There is a lot of grain in this paper, a lot more than when I was using the Ami newsprint paper. That little sketch only took me about 40 minutes. But when you use the pastel, the grained paper, you will really have to work the grain. But you can put in the extra colors later on, you will see. But first, let's take the Panpastel knife. You can see it here. It's like a little palette knife that the painters use, and there's a little rubber over it, and with that Panpastel knife I ease in the pigments. Then it's time for the second stage, and this is the stage in which I start looking for the darkest shadows. I really want to put those in. I've pushed down the pigments, of course, in the first stage, and now I can easily go over it with the darker gray, and that is the pastel pencil number 760. That's a very, very dark gray. It's not black, it's a very dark gray, and I'm avoiding the black because if I would use black, then that would be really, really dark, and I don't want that because I want to express the softness of the puppy. And there's a lot of shadow just next to the head here on the left, so I want to put that in. And also there's a little ridge here in the wood of the piano, so I'm really pushing in those darker shadows. And then I also pushed those in with the Panpastel knife. Now for the Ebony Keys, I'm also using that same dark gray pastel pencil. And if you watch very carefully, then you can see that the top of those Ebony Keys are dark, but the sides of the Ebony Keys are lightened up by the ivory keys, the white keys. So this brings us a lot of shine and a lot of 3D feel. So I'm really using the reflections of the keys that are casted upon each other to create this feel of the piano keys. And well, here and there they're not exactly correct, but it doesn't matter as long as I get the feel of those keys. And I'm also, of course, using that same dark gray. It looks like black, but it isn't. It's a dark gray pastel pencil. And also here I use that inside the puppy. The darkest shadows are just next to the beak, but also in the closed eye area. And there are some dark shadows in the curly hair that is upon the ears of the puppy. He has those lovely floppy ears, so I draw in a little bit in the direction of the way that the hairs are falling and growing. And here, just underneath the shoulder and next to the dangling paw, there's also a lot of shadow. And a little bit on the paw itself. You can see it here, and I ease it in, and then I will just use the blender stick or the Panpastel knife to push those pigments into the paper. And here, just underneath the puppy, there's also a lot of shadow casted upon the ivory keys. Then it's time for the third stage, and that is bringing in the light. That's my favorite part. I'm using the white pastel pencil, number 100. A little bit of yellow, 560. This is a light ochre, but as you can see, the numbers have disappeared because, I rubbed them off or something. So I don't know the number, but it's light ochre. And I also selected a very light green, and that is the number 545, as you can see. But please feel free to use any kind of color that you prefer. So this is just some colors that I chose. The reference picture doesn't have any color, so I'm simply using my imagination. And what I was imagining is that there is this window way in the back, and that window casts a lot of shadow onto the floor, and the light is partially going over the little puppy. And by using that light, I want to create that soft feel of the puppy. Once I've placed a layer of white pigments, I ease them down again with the Panpastel knife. And you can instantly see how soft this blends together. And for the top of the head, which catches a little bit of light too, I'm using the blender stick to push in the pigments. For the parts that are smaller, it is smart to use the blender stick. And for the bigger areas, you can simply use the Panpastel knife. Now, as the light is hitting the puppy partially, there also should come a little bit of color upon the puppy itself. So I'm using that yellow ochre pastel pencil again, of which I do not know the number because it was rubbed off. And this also creates the feel of softness, and it brings a little bit of color. And should this be a golden retriever puppy, then that would be the right color to choose. And of course the ebony, the ivory piano keys, they are partially quite white, but there's also shadow upon the keys. So I place a layer of white, and that's an underlayer, and then I push the pigments in again with the blender stick, and then I simply pull them towards the Ebony Keys with the blender stick. And in between the keys there is a little bit of light, and a little bit upon the front of the piano. So also those, I put in those lights, I put in with the white Panpastel pencil, and then I go over them with the Panpastel knife. Now maybe there are a lot of trees outside, so now I can use a little bit of the green to push in the light that is coming from outside, which is then a little bit more greenish. And I also put a little bit of that green light coming from outside upon the white piano keys, and also on the Ebony Keys. Then a little bit of the music paper, and then at the very end I draw in the little whiskers that are going over the Ebony Keys. So this is my story of the puppy that has fallen asleep upon the piano, and I totally loved drawing this. It's just amazing to do, so I really hope that you will give this a try too at home, or maybe you want to check it out on my Patreon page. That's okay with me too, of course, and then you can watch the whole length of this tutorial, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and also see all the reference pictures and over 100 more videos of mine. So thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next tutorial.